In the film Mask, starring Cher, it's the story about a mom and her son. Her son's face is uneven and misshapen. When he happens upon a funhouse ride mirror, he catches a glimpse of himself in the mirror. He gets to see himself complete, whole, and even handsome. For many years, community gardening was a big part of my life. There were rules and stuff, but I really wasn't paying attention to any of that until the Black people at the garden rebelled against the white people who ran the garden for lording over them. I didn't understand how that could be until one day the garden coordinator called me on the phone to request that I give up one of my garden plots and train a Black person to take it over. As I was writing that down and agreeing, the phone call got disconnected. And it was because of that interruption, I was able to see how the Black people felt this way. It's hard to see ourselves. We seem to have plenty of opportunity to see ourselves as broken and flawed, but we're all waiting for that time when we can see ourselves whole, complete, and even handsome. Welcome. Welcome to Sunday Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. At Sunday Coffee Hour, we talk about everything and nothing. This Sunday, we talked about students for a democratic society being brainwashed, having our love and compassion stolen, and having prejudice against hospice. The readings at Washington National Cathedral were from Genesis. We all have a plan, but God gives us a new name and sets us off in a new direction. And from Romans, law brings wrath, but with God, all things are possible. The gospel reading was from Mark. Set your mind on divine things. The sermon at Washington National Cathedral was by Leonard Hamlin. Mr. Hamlin preached about being at a crossroads. We know we're at a crossroads when we can't make a decision or take action or feel motivated. Mr. Hamlin said, Jesus takes Peter aside to scold him for suggesting they follow the ways of the world instead of God's ways. Jesus had a vision for how things were to unfold. We always seem to be looking for a way to go around the problem. We like to avoid an issue instead of going through the issue and facing it face to face. We're often trying to find a different way instead of God's way, settling for limited possibilities instead of God's possibilities. Mr. Hamlin said we are most definitely living at a crossroads, and choices need to be made, individually and collectively. The weight of making decisions puts a burden on meeting unexpected difficulties. Sometimes doing nothing is how we experience being at the crossroads. It's the disruption moment of Lent and at any other time in our lives when it occurs to us we probably don't have all the answers. The sermon at St. James was by Christopher Griffin. Chris preached about things we probably should give up besides chocolate and wine during Lent. We should instead give up the idea of erroneous thoughts, erroneous thinking, thoughts and beliefs, including those that are similar to the idea that we can make it on our own or do things on our own because we don't need anyone else's help. And also the idea that because people on the other side of the world are suffering, somehow it doesn't affect us. These are things we probably could give up instead of chocolate and wine. We all need to examine ourselves. Socrates said through his student Plato, a life not well examined is not complete. We all need to deny ourselves to see ourselves. It's how self-examination works. When we see ourselves as apart from others, it's a distortion. And when we see ourselves as able to go it alone, it's probably something we need to deny. When we look out at the suffering in the world and see ourselves as apart from it, it's probably something we need to deny also. Chris said we can look at the world and see what it needs. We all want to offer our love, but sometimes it's stolen or tread upon before we have a chance. Dr. Martin Luther King said, if it's not worth dying for, then it's probably not worth living for. Chris said, we all need to live our lives knowing we're going to die, and we all need to love like we're going to live. In the 1939 film Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff says, I can't live in a world where people don't know what love is, and I can't die without my soul. Who wants to be surrounded by people who think they know about heaven and hell, but don't have a clue about what it's like to be alive? In looking at many of the films I saw in my early life, I realized how they informed my worldview. In the films, I saw a lot of examples of people saying one thing and doing something else. I just assumed that's how people presented themselves. We're all drips and drabs of personality borrowed from other people until the real us emerges. But sometimes all the borrowed stuff gets in the way. Betty Davis said in the film All About Eve, we all leave stuff behind to get somewhere in this life. And it's only later that we realize we need it. I'm not sure if the people running the community gardening are having a good time. Maybe they do know a lot about how to run a garden and heaven and hell part of it, but they really might be lacking in the living part. Some think the character of Heathcliff was romantic, and others see him as a stalking psychopath. Yes, we are at a crossroads of seeing the world through our eyes as dark and grim, or through God's eyes as everything bright and beautiful. If you would like to join us at Sunday Coffee Hour is every Sunday at 12 noon Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video. I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.